It's really important at times in the labor movement that we look back a bit on history. And at this time, we want to recognize an event and some of the people directly involved in it that took place 61 years ago. An event that holds a special place in workers' history. People to whom we owe a great debt for their struggle to make Canada a more just, a more compassionate, and a more democratic society. I'm referring to the Ottawa Trek of 1935 and to all that it stood for then and still stands for today. The Trek grew out of the appalling conditions of the Great Depression: joblessness, homelessness, soup kitchens, flop houses and hobo jungles. It grew also out of the courage of relief camp workers. Relief camps were established in remote locations in the early 1930s by the Conservative Prime Minister R.B. Bennett. With few options, mostly young men entered the camps where they were paid 20 cents a day for their labor, issued war surplus clothing, assigned to tar paper shacks, and fed army rations. Eventually, under the leadership of Arthur Slim Evans, these workers, slaves is a more accurate name for them at that time, formed the Relief Camp Workers Union in association with the Workers' Unity League. They staged big demonstrations and work stoppages, including a strike which converged here in Vancouver in April of 1935. Their demands were simple: real work and pay, better food, clothing and shelter, an end to military discipline, an unemployment insurance scheme, enforcement of workers' compensation laws, and union recognition. They wanted Ottawa to hear their grievances. Bennett refused. So on June 3, 1935, over 1,000 of them left Vancouver on freight trains, bound for Ottawa under the slogan, "Work and Wages." Through Kamloops, Revelstoke, Golden, Calgary, Medicine Hat, Swift Current, Moose Jaw, and finally Regina, the Trek picked up the support and momentum that Bennett feared. He ordered the Trek stopped and reluctantly agreed to meet with a small delegation in Ottawa. 8 trekkers, led by Evans, met with Bennett, who was flanked by our CMP officers. On June 22nd, when the exchange became heated, the trekkers were thrown out. 9 days later, on July 1st, City Police and the RCMP converged on Regina's Market Square, where there was a group of trekkers and sympathizers, and provoked a riot. There was bloodshed and 1 death. Within days, the Trek disbanded under an agreement that had been negotiated with the provincial government. On the face of it, the Trek's impact seemed limited in terms of reaching its destination and its goals, but the aftermath says otherwise. By the fall of 1935, Bennett's Tories were decisively tossed out of office. The relief camps were eventually shut down. Unemployment insurance was introduced in 1940. In the intervening years, so much in the way of progressive social legislation has been achieved, so much that is threatened again today. As we look for inspiration in these troubled times, we need look no farther than the Relief Camp Workers Union and the Ottawa Trek of 1935. They are part of our rich heritage. They are part of what we are today. They should have been recognized by the labor movement long, long ago. Sisters and brothers, please join with me in welcoming back to the city where the Ottawa Trek began 61 years ago, 10 trekkers, 10 outstanding Canadians.
still increasing, hear the bugle blow. By our numbers we will triumph over every foe. Hold the fort, for we are coming, Union hearts beat strong. Side by side we'll battle onward, victory will come. See our numbers still increasing, hear the bugle blow. By our numbers we will triumph over every foe. Hold the fort, for we are coming, Union hearts beat strong. Side by side we'll battle onward, victory will come. Every shade of human color in our ranks is found. Men and women stand together, sharing common ground. Hold the fort, for we are coming, Union hearts be strong. Side by side we'll battle onward, victory will come.
Well, guys, I'm not going to get any more time. Brad, you're going to run the report.
I would be remiss, I think, at this convention if I didn't thank Barb Byers, the President of the Saskatchewan Federation of Labour, who kept this issue alive and raised it with me so as we could recognize these trekkers at this convention. It is with a great honor on behalf of all of the delegates here that we present the trekkers with an original picture of one of the people who participated in the trek to Ottawa, and all of the pictures are inscribed. It says, presented by the Canadian Labour Congress in recognition of the outstanding contribution of the men and women who organized and participated in the 1935 On the Ottawa Trek, Vancouver, BC, May 14th, 1996. Now let me read who's on the platform here, and I'll just have them raise their fist as I introduce them. Bill Davis was part of a small but vital advance group that preceded the main body of the trek. And Bill had the massive task of arranging food and shelter for 15 hungry young men. He now lives in Saskatchewan, BC. I probably got the name wrong, eh, Bill? Okay, George Edwards was 27 when the Depression hit. And despite a solid work history, he too was soon out of a job. He rode the rails extensively throughout Canada on both CPR and CN lines, and is now living in Regina. Jack Geddes spent time in the relief camps. Despite being a skilled tradesman, after the Depression, Brother Geddes worked as a bricklayer and was a business agent for the Bricklayers Union, now lives in White Rock, BC. Rudy Fedorowicz from Regina, Saskatchewan. Worked for long periods during the Depression for room and board and nothing more, and spent years in both the provincial and federal relief camps in Alberta. Lil Green, as is so often the case in history, As is so often the case in history, the support and the involvement of women in the relief camps and on the Trek is not told. Along with 8 trekkers who met with R.B. Bennett on June 22nd was Lil Green, who joined the trekkers in Toronto. Ilaf Kellner. He now lives in Burnaby, BC. He ran the risk of being deported back to Sweden when he became active in the Relief Camp Workers' Union. On the Trek, he was responsible for discipline and security. Harry Lindsley. Harry was forced into one of Bennett's relief camps in the wilderness of Alberta. And after the Depression, he had a long career with United Packing House Union and now lives in Saskatoon. And we talk about youth. At 18 years of age, Robert Doc Savage was leading Division 3 of the Relief Camp Workers Union. The unit that undertook some of the most aggressive and dangerous protest activities during the 1930s. He now lives in Quesnel, BC. Quesnel, BC. Matt Shaw. Matt was widely regarded as the best platform speaker and fundraiser in the Relief Camp Workers Union. I am told he could and still can deliver a spellbinding, hour-long speech without a note in front of him. Matt now lives in Regina. We haven't got an hour. Bob Jackson, organized support. Organized support for the relief camp workers' strike in Vancouver in early 1935. Bob went on to do work with the International Woodworkers of America and now lives in Powell River here in British Columbia. I have left Brother Jackson to the last because he has agreed to take a few minutes to share with you some of the experiences of the historical events of 1935. And let me introduce and present a picture to Brother Jackson, and then I'll call on him and we'll present the pictures to the rest of the delegation. Brother Jackson.
I can't help but think of the 30s and think of the degradation and what we went through. And I must say this because it has to be said. Some of the things that are happening today, such as not feeding people because they don't have 3 months citizenship in the province of British Columbia, somebody should change their ideas. I should also point out that that's just the first step to not being able to use your vote. We had no vote. We had no domicile in a relief camp. And such things can happen again. I have listened today to some of the speeches, and I've listened to the tenor of the Congress. I think it's wonderful. I think it's well. But I should point out that in our generation, when the Workers' Unity League, led by Arthur Slim Evans, pointed out that we had to be daring, we had to be determined, and we had to follow through on what we said. The Workers' Unity League did not only organize the Relief Camp Workers' Union, but they organized many other people within the 30s, the miners. And I should point out that in the mining city of Corbin, they used a bulldozer on the picket line. It's terrible what they did in regards to the picket lines. The police were bloody brutal, and don't think they will not be brutal again. I think what we have to recognize as far as the Ottawa Trek and the spirit and the militancy will be met. They will not give us anything for nothing. We'll have to fight for everything we ever want. I should point out, because it hasn't been said very often, when we got to the city of Regina, I don't have much time, when we got to the city of Regina, and on July the 1st, when the police-inspired riot that took place there, where over 100 people were injured, and they were injured with, many of them with real bullets, not clubs, but real bullets. I should point out that that situation that developed there was to kill the spirit of organization, not to deliberately stop the trek as a trek, but to kill us in our spirits of fighting in the future. And many of these trekkers have continued to fight in the future and will continue to do so. When it all finished in the city of Regina and the government, I should point out one thing that I don't think is known, that the authority of the government of Saskatchewan under Premier Garden was completely taken away from him and taken over by the federal government and put into the hands of Colonel Wood of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. These are the kind of things that could happen when their little pie is being put in danger. We should not forget that 1935, although the Ottawa Trek from British Columbia is one of those that's looked upon very, more than any other, we mustn't forget that the people in Eastern Canada walked the roads from Timmins, Kirkland Lake to Ottawa. They came from all places there. I personally, instead of taking my fare back home to Vancouver where I lived, I took it to Montreal with a friend and decided to join the trek in the eastern side. And to get out of Montreal, as you know, there are bridges. There was provincial police on every bridge, and if you walked across that bridge, you had to prove who you were and where you were going. And the only way that me and my mates got out of that city was with an outfit called Norman Transport, hidden into a bunch of furniture that was going to Ottawa. But those are the kind of things we did individually and collectively in order to do the things we wanted to do and make a decision. Now, I want to have a few minutes to speak of the youth of today. I feel that the youth of today are worse off than we were in the Hungry 30s. The things that are out there, the things that they've been promised, and the rights of themselves as individuals, and it's not being recognized, I feel that we owe a real bit of pressure in the sense of seeing that they're well educated and something can be done for them. The only growing industry that I can see at the moment happens to be food banks and casinos. And who the hell is going to make any money out of that? We got to remember that as far as the youth of this present day in this country of Canada, the third industrial center country in the world, has the third largest suicides of youth between the ages of 17 and 24. What type of a future is that? And 1/3 of the kids between 17 and 24 are not working. And the kind of work they are getting are jobs that aren't worth the powder to blow them to hell. There is no way that a young man or a young woman can think of falling in love and doing the thing properly on the basis of the kind of money they're going to earn. We should think about that. It's very important. Unity is what is needed. And the unity that we show here is not just simply with us. We're going to have to show unity with any Tom, Dick, and Harry we can get for some of the changes that are going to be needed. and a vision that I really don't believe, and neither does a lot of the trekkers, is going to be given to us no matter what type of a reform we get under the present government in which we live. And what I want to make a point on the question of women. You've got the greatest allies you ever had, any man in this building. And remember, you all had a woman as a mother. And remember, the thing that we have to do best, and the thing that we can give to them best, is for us not to show equality. Within the trade union movement, wherever we are, they have every right to be equal, to do the things that they wish to do. We should listen. We don't know it all. We should get up off our butts, take them into consideration, and really take this world on. I don't agree. I don't agree that things will come easy, and I don't want to be a pessimist. We're going to have to fight. We're going to have to struggle. We're going to have to be daring in everything we do. The good leaders will come out of a struggle, and that struggle is now. And our vision for the future, it's a good one for every one of us. And by God, we got to fight and get it. And the spirit of the Trek was simply being militant, fight, organize, and do your level best for each other. Thank you.
All right, hey, don't run away there. That's wonderful. That's just wonderful. That is just wonderful. Give me your notes.
No, I'll go away.